Welcome to the Steve Setka Show, your uncensored champion. I'm your host, Steve Setka, and I'm diving deep into the things that matter most to me: sport, freight, and faith. On the show, we're not afraid to go beyond the surface. We get real, share bold opinions, and hit you where it may be uncomfortable. These are the topics I'm passionate about, and I bet they'll spark something in you too. So buckle up for quick, high-impact episodes that'll shake you up. Back to the Steve Setka Show. We're on episode 15. We're rolling. We do a weekly episode. It's consistent every week. Sometimes we miss a week and we jump right back into it because the people want to hear what Steve Setka and guest has to say. As per normal, we frame every episode prior to introducing our guest for the show today with the Bible verse. This is a combo for the first time from the Bible about a very interesting perspective in my life. So it's from Proverbs 16:18, which reads, "Pride comes before destruction and an arrogant spirit before a fall." And then jumping into James 4:10, the not so subtle lie of pride is that the only way to win is to take control and do it yourself. But God's perspective is that the only way to win in life is to humble yourself before Him. The upside down promise of grace is that when we humble ourselves before God, He will lift us up. Now, with that being said, we have a wonderful, spectacular guest today, Nathaniel. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Steve. It's always a blessing. I love your energy, man. You're always to me, you're a reflection of an eternal optimist. Like faith, I see as the energy you bring. And faith is interesting in the body when you really have it, right? It's this feeling of conviction, right? That what you're doing is you're on your path and you're being guided by that journey towards coming back home. So I'm really thrilled to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome, man, and thank you for coming on. And you're so right. The journey back home. Where is the journey just back home is to serve God in everything we do. And like prayer is just so important and valuable. Hence why we frame it with, that's the version of prayer for this show, is we frame it with that verse to open up the conversation through God in order to talk about something fascinating and interesting. So I got you on here for a very specific reason. You and I met a couple years ago in Courtenay, BC, at the 12 Tribes location in Courtenay, at a Friday night dinner, and just hit it off, okay? And we talked about off-grid living, faith. I told you I was in transport, all this. You're working on books and associations and just life as a beautiful entity, and you're creating a couple wonderful associations around that. And within the last two and a half years that we've done, since we've met, you've been working on this. So you have a mission.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell the audience about right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Well, it's actually my singular focus, and I already told you what it is. It's home, and I know it has to start within me. So I follow the Christ way, and to me, home is an acronym. I believe, to me, God is the loving intelligence and the intelligent love that's in everything and everyone. And I believe with all my heart that is what Christ was seeking to awaken in us from His totally transcendent level of consciousness. So heaven on Mother Earth is home to me. And I realize that it's funny you talk about pride and then humility as a solution to that. Because to me, humility, it talks about what Christ talked about as only through the eyes of a child can we enter into the kingdom of heaven. To me, humility isn't necessarily making yourself small or insignificant. It's more approaching life and remembering the miracle that all of this is. Like, we are an embodiment of miracles. We come from a seed and an egg in an act of love from our parents. And the thing that I found so fascinating and often kind of disconcerting too, from a young boy, and I still have this, is like how much the grown-ups, so to speak, have normalized miracles, and we stop really pausing for those moments and building the momentum of those moments throughout the day. And I understand all the stresses in the world, but that's the mission, is heaven on Mother Earth, beginning from within me, because that's all I can really work with God directly, is within my heart, within my mind, within my being, and aligning those actions. But then I can influence and radiate that source of unconditional love, touch other people, be a source of blessing for others, and that can ripple out into communities, into neighborhoods. And I feel like we ignite one another when we are in alignment, and when Christ is really the driving force of our consciousness.
You're so right. And I wrote down some notes of so many beautiful things you just said. I can't even keep up. We are the light on Mother Earth. We are the heaven on Mother Earth. My wife was just saying this the other day. She's like, I don't know the Bible super well, but I know there's a lot in there about heaven on earth. And you just cracked it right on the head. You're like, boom, we're going into it right away. So Casey's going to listen to this, my wife, and she's going to absolutely love it.
Amazing.
And you got a journey. I want to touch on something quickly, though. He's going home. Like, we're going home, and that is an act of transport. So, like, we talk on the show, Nathaniel, about freight, right? And transportation. But, like, we're changing the topic a little bit today to talk about faith more and the journey through life and childhood, adulthood, going into your senior years and death. And that is a transportation line in itself, too. So the connection between faith and freight is so significant and relevant because, like, freight, we talk about goods, but it's also ideas and it's also people. So it's transporting through life with like a guidebook or a guideline of action, which is what we have in the Bible in order to live the best life that we possibly can. And it starts with something that you're focused on so significantly, which is that act of love from your parents to create a beautiful new being, a child, a baby. And that's exactly what your mission is, the Light Heart Vision Association and your new book, correct? Light on Fear. Tell us more about that. Where did this all come from and why are you doing it?
Yeah, well, I mean, these are huge questions, and I have so much to share here. Probably could be the topic of 10 podcasts, but we'll start where we are. So first off, Light on Fear is the first book of a trilogy that was really inspired by, I have many words for it. I don't always call it God, but to me, it's the source of my being, divine consciousness. And it's 3 particular moments where I experienced the embodiment of the power that is unconditional love. When we think of unconditional love, I think in our Western society, we think of like that Jesus was talking about just forgiving everyone. But I think it's so much more powerful because I have felt it and I know that it's the raw power that creates the cosmos. It's so powerful. So this book is based on the moment of welcoming our daughter Luciana into this world. And we had a home birth. Again, this topic of home. And Julie and I did so much preparation work for this. Meditation, prayer, journaling, affirmation. She created a whole beautiful birth affirmations wall. And we did so much beautiful preparation. And I'd love to share any questions you have around that. But I had the opportunity of catching her. And because we had a totally natural birth, Julia had not had any kind of painkiller or anything because we knew that it would block oxytocin if there is that. And obviously there was medical emergencies and, we were prepared to respond in whatever happened, but we had a doula who was trained as a naturopath there. And I had the opportunity of catching, we didn't know it was going to be a little girl. And I didn't even know until after these moments, but the first thing she did, Steve, she looked right in my eyes. And then in the next moment, she turned and looked right in Julia's eyes. She knew where she was in the room. I had the feeling like she was looking to see what we looked like. It's like she was getting to know us all these months in duration, and she was just there. She was present. She was so present. Like it's an indescribable moment. And I've had several of these moments, but there are 3 that kind of are the focal point. So this book is the first in an evolving children's book series. It goes from a novel into a graphic novel, into a meditative tool, into the evolving children's stories. And it actually takes the journey of the caterpillar going in through chrysalis and then evolving. Yeah. So that's the first
references. Like, that's such a great way to frame it. It's just a journey through life. And the reason like we're here and talking is because it's not you, it's not me that knew this was going to happen. It was our Father who knew, and he reconnected us, right? And you reached out to me.
Yeah.
We were on the texts and you said, hey, this is new and this is that. And like, we're building this and we had a beautiful baby and I want to tell you the story. And you're like, I'm like, bro, we're doing the same thing.
I know. It's amazing.
And I'm like, wow, you had this wonderful experience and I'm excited for you. You're excited for me. And God remembered because he doesn't forget. We forget as humans. But you had this thing that triggered you, which was his light that said, hey, let me reach out to Steve because there's a reason for this. I mean, we met for a reason at 12 Tribes in Corny, BC. I'm in Winnipeg. You're in Ottawa now.
Yeah, exactly.
Different time zones. And, somehow we were brought together. And one thing I believe is there are no coincidences in this world. Everything is specifically divinely intentional. And that's how we got together. So I'm going through this as well, too. And you're talking home birth and you caught your baby. And it's so like extraordinary because you're like outside the world because the world tells you to do one thing in childbirth from what I've heard, because we're going through it halfway through pregnancy now. Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, we're doing it God's way. And we've gotten so far away from that. And I got a book, Supernatural Childbirth, which is like a must read for me. Okay. God's power in the creation and conception of a baby and birth. And you're doing free birth at home with you and the doula and your wife and creating this wonderful, beautiful story. And you're bringing it away from like what the world's taught us back to what was intended to.
Yeah.
for childbirth and design. And I'm so excited about that because, like, I've heard so many people talk about birth of a baby being so traumatic and scary and
Yeah.
painful and
Yeah.
all this. And you know what they don't talk about enough, which we need to bring back, is faith and the
Yeah.
spirit and
Yeah.
God's hand in the process and the nature of what this happens. Two purposes I believe we're living on this earth is to serve and glorify God and to reproduce, right? In Genesis, go forth and multiply, right? And you're doing that and you're writing a book on it. And I'm so excited to read this and learn more about your mission. Tell us more. Like, give us the meat and potatoes within reason and
Yeah.
get people buying this book because we got to
Sure.
get this out there for more people to.
I appreciate it. I've learned so much about becoming an author, stepping into my power, entrepreneurship in the last few years, stuff I feel like all 5-year-olds should be taught. So I'm kind of doing a lot of things backward. And so I appreciate you getting the message out there. To me, we need to hear these uplifting stories. Like I feel if I could summarize myself in one way, it's being an uplifter of consciousness. And so there's two specific things I want to tie this into what you talked about, transport, that journey of life. And I'd like to present it more of a circle. And a lot of the teachings that I'm bringing are actually, I've listened to many different perspectives, culturally, spiritually, from many different people. And I believe that we're actually multidimensional beings having a multidimensional life, that we're not necessarily these linear beings that we're always taught. But this idea of transport, there's two qualities to transport. It's what you're carrying, and then it's the movement of the carrying itself. And
the intention.
Well, there's the will, right? The will is that movement, and then there's the form. And in scientific terms, we would talk about, the electricity that even in our body, there's a miracle of movement that's happening all the time. And then there's the magnetic form that is in everything. And science can't so much explain this, but Christ did explain this. And your viewers probably haven't ever heard of these before, but the Christ letters goes into more detail about Christ's teachings over 2,000 years ago now. And so when you talk about the Father, what he presents in the letters is that the Father is all of the movement, activity, the intelligent love in expression. And it is only, it is the parenting impulse of that will that's in life, but it also is coupled with the mother impulse, which is the bonding, also the protection drive, the rejection. It's the nurturing of purpose. So whereas the Father has a will for us, it requires the mother nurturance. And if we think of our connection to Mother Earth, our connection to our own mothers, this is a very important healing aspect of the letters. It really, to me, it brings full circle what his teachings were primarily about. It's like returning to this understanding that God is the indwelling nature, the impulses that give us breath and meaning. It's not some being up in the sky that judges us and sends condemnation. So the mother, if we look at it that way, it's like our children's body, like our body and all of life, is an expression of that mother consciousness. And this might be a new idea for some, but to me, it's not that they're separate. It's that they work together in all ways. We can see it present in all of life. So when I think of the incredible work you're doing with helping people move things, like the faith that's required to take a direction forward, right? I have an acronym for it. It's GOLD, good, orderly, loving direction. And that's, to me, is when I'm in alignment with Father. Orderly, loving direction.
Wonderful.
So when I pray and meditate, I'm constantly asking for my consciousness to be cleansed so that Father will can be the guiding force in my heart and mind. And like all of us, I have an ego drive. Wayne Dyer talked about the ego as like edging God out. So the ego is the one that causes the pride to show up, like I'm going to do it myself, and we've been conditioned, we've been conditioned. So there's a process of cleansing. Christ talked a lot about this too. Like we have to prepare for heaven. It's not just like, you can't just ride on the coattails of a savior. Like we have responsibility in our life to be examples and to be loving brothers and sisters to one another, right? It's the golden rule. So there you go. There's the gold.
That's incredible. I love that. Again, so many great things to pick up on. You related it back to pride, right? And you said you didn't do this birth on your own. It wasn't all your wife. She did a lot of work. Don't take credit away from her. You did some a little bit as well too, and you had a great role. And you touched on the masculine and the feminine. It's so intentional what the mothering nature is and what the father nature is. And you have the ultimate father helping you out. And there's so much beauty and love there. And you're teaching the world through this book, and my understanding, how to relate that to the essence of childbirth, which is so wonderful. And you said this exactly wonderfully. It's a transfer of energy, right, into the next chapter, the next phase. And you are the outlet or the vehicle towards bringing new life to the world through God's purpose, right? So like he utilizes us in a way to create better than we already are. Because the intention of every parent that I know, maybe not everyone, but we know every parent, when they're being honest, is to create better children than maybe they were as children, as adults, as humans, right? And that's what the essence of life is, to continue to grow, continue to get better, to continue to progress. And when we take it away from God and we put it in the world, pride gets in the way. And we get selfish and we think that we did it on our own. And there's so many consequences to that are negative. And I don't love that. I think that creates like a lost society because we don't know where our foundations were. I listened to this really interesting bit on Twitter the other day that talked about people that differentiate between where did you come from? Did you come from God or did you come from nothing? Right?
Yeah.
And then like, where do you go?
You always need one miracle. One miracle.
Yeah, that's right. But like, where do you go when you die? Then do you go to God or do you go into nothing? Well, if you can't see, touch, feel, taste, prove by science or photograph God or nothing, but you came from a creation somewhere, when you die and you can't see, touch, feel, taste, photograph, or prove by science God or nothing, wouldn't that mean that at the end of life, you just come back to your creation? That's heaven, bitch.
Yeah.
That's what they said on this comic strip. It was pretty funny.
That's hilarious.
We make it fun here talking about birth, life, transporting goods, transporting people through life. And it's all faith-based and faith-oriented. Like you said at the outset of the show, everything we do with loving intention is God's service to us. And our return to him is to love him and serve the world in a great way. And to do that with everything that we have, because we are tools for the world to create good and beautiful and loving and unity.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. And I would add to it that it's that we are given this gift as children of creator, of creation, of God. However you want to express that, we're given this gift because God is that total loving, giving source of being. It wants to experience and have a relationship with us. And I feel like there are levels of maturity to spiritual relationship. One of them is, like I said earlier, this, and it happens in almost every culture around the world, this, like this uncertainty of what life is as we start awakening and realizing like, we don't know what's in the unknown, right? And then, like the elements show us things. There's power in nature, there's lightning and there's thunder and there's hailstorms and there's these elemental powers, so that it's very easy to ascribe these happenings that occur to us as this power that's condemning or based on our behavior. And then as we develop spiritually, we come into a realization that that there is maybe a deeper meaning in all of this, and we start reflecting on that. We can get to a place, though, I think we all go through this, where we start asking God for favor. We want God to be on our side. We want things. We want guidance. And that is, it's a limited form of relationship with God, because it's like if we treated our parents like that. Hey, can I have the keys, Dad? Can I just have, can you buy me this stuff? And that's it's a one-sided relationship. And of course, to me, that loving intelligence that is the nature of God only wants to give, but it also wants to have a relationship with us. I feel like when we truly become really mature, what you said about service is really important. And I believe that there's a mutual reciprocation of relationship between ourselves and God. Like, God wants us to be joyful and happy and fulfilled and inspired and waking up excited. And, I think that what you talked about, the greatest pain that happens when we start trying to operate from ourselves and living selfishly and separate, as if we are these more than powerful, or we're better than, and really whatever the ego, however it wants to manifest, the greatest thing that happens is the barrier between our relationship with Father consciousness. We stop hearing that voice of love that we hear as a child, and then to turn it from the other perspective, when we can take on that role as parents ourselves, or as brothers or uncles or however, and be a source of unconditional love for those that we encounter, at whatever level that they're on in their journey, then we're we're reflecting and we're allowing God to work through us in that way of unconditional love. And that is, I think, the greatest way that we serve our children is by allowing them to be who they are. Obviously, we guide them, and there's things in the world we need to be made aware of them. But really, the work of parenting, I believe, is it's why it's called parenting. Is we have to keep doing our inner work. It's not about controlling our children to behave in a certain way. And that's why God doesn't really try to control us. We're given laws of existence, and if we break them, we create a barrier between that love. And then we go through our suffering and our pain, and we create circumstances in our life that are less than ideal. And we all have to some degree, face those things to realize that we're the ones causing this barrier between ourselves and love in its nature.
Well, the lurker is always around, unfortunately. But, unfortunately, right? And people ask this question oftentimes, I think, of like, why do bad things happen? Why is the devil around? Why would God allow this, right? And he doesn't, okay? He creates beauty and he creates love and he creates wonderful outcomes. But you're right. If you're not in relationship, the lurker will try to seek that within you. And that's where we are prideful and think we're doing it on our own, and the devil sneaks in. So it's a really interesting, fascinating concept, but this is why it's so hard, I think. And especially these days and age, to be spiritual and faithful, because there's so much split and division in people's opinions, right? And we have so much pride in, we have our opinions. We're allowed to think on our own, do our own. That's great. Think on your own. I think that's wonderful. You should be able to decipher for sure. But we've taken the world and we've decided that we want to remove principle design from it that actually creates so much love and so much beauty. And I understand there's lots of reasons for that. But, you touched on something there earlier that talked about only good things happening through all of this. And that's what we're aspiring for. But you can't just relate to God or to our Father when things are going well or the things that you want that are good. He's going to challenge you. And this is one of the purposes of life and why he does this for us, because he breaks us down so that we can become stronger. And it's a very difficult concept of give and take in the Bible. But when you're being selfish and you take far more than you give, because it's a two-way street, like you said, we serve God, God serves us. He's everlasting and the ultimate love. But we take that for granted oftentimes. And that's when the relationship breaks down. And we see that a lot in society right now. Casey, my wife, talks about this all the time. The inner work that we do as parents is so valuable for children. It's far more learning and education and whatnot. And the responsibility is incredible.
Yeah.
From my understanding, you being a parent now, me being a future parent, I had really wonderful parents, and I assume you did as well too. But it's so essential and important to study and understand and realize these things. So the fact we're doing this episode right now is probably the most important episode that we've done on the Steve Setka Show, because it's really the root of everything and where everything starts, right? We know our priorities, right? It's God, it's spouse, it's kids, it's family, and then it's like career or something like that, right? And if we are out of alignment with what the way it was intended to be, we're going to suffer, okay? Yeah. So you have a bonus, by the way, because your last name, parent or parent, is you're intended to be a parent all along. So that is beautiful and wonderful. And this mission you have with this book, Light on Fear, going through childbirth and talking about the miracle that it is and bringing that back to what he wanted is awesome. And you have this program that I want you to tell the listeners about called Moment Home Prodigles or Moment Home System. And that is a part of this mission as well, too. What is that all about?
Yeah, well, it actually... It's a living framework. I just finished the first draft. It's like an 8-petal. I was inspired to call it the Moment Home Method for a while, but then I realized it's not a method, because nothing that I do or can share with people is like a step process, like do this, and this. To me, Christ is the greatest teacher of love. And so forming a relationship with him and asking for that partnership is always going to be what leads to the next thing. So I decided to just open myself to inspiration, and just hit me. I was having dinner with my daughter and my wife and our Julia's parents as well, and it hit me that it's the Moment Home miracle, and it's this idea that it's a three-part reference framework that uses basic symbology to connect us to alignment of that recognition that we are in the presence of God all the time. And Light on Fear, the reason I call it Light on Fear, it's actually a mirror book. So it's both Julia and my perspective when we meet in the middle at this moment of our welcoming our daughter into the world. And her name means light, by the way, as well. Fear, I was inspired with this acronym from the divine to look at fear as, we probably have all heard the acronym face everything and face everything and rise, or false evidence appearing real. We've heard that. One's Neil Donald Walsh, the other one I think was Kanye in
Right.
the early days. For me, I was just inspired with this a few years ago, probably around the time meeting you, and it served me during that moment. It's feel everything and remember. And remember is a big question, like you talked about, that forgetting. I've been contemplating forgetting my whole life, because I feel like when we really remember who we truly are and welcome that relationship with being at home with God, and recognize it's a source of our being that lives within us, then we can expand our capacity for that level of consciousness. I believe that we live in our body at a certain level of consciousness, and we can actually expand it and become more soulfully present as we mature spiritually. So Light on Fear points to this system, or the moment home miracle. And it's a 3-part. It's the way we rise, I feel, is very important. I don't even call it the morning anymore, because I'm careful of my words. I call it the rising, right? So what I do when I rise is related to what I do when I rest. And then how I shine. So I have a rise and shine ritual. And so the line is my rise. And I challenge you, here's a takeaway for your audience. You know how we write I? I think most of us write I, and we go from up to down. Try changing just that one thing that you do when you write the word I and when you handwrite. Go from down to up,
And see down to up.
Yeah, and see how it feels different, and see how the line changes. That rising motion is different than the fall, right? So we're meant to rise in consciousness back to a place where we can hear Christ. We can hear God resonating through our body. So that's the rising. I've created a way of working with people, either one-on-one or in a system, to help them get really clear on their higher vision. And I use these 3, they're not really steps, they're part of this living embodiment tool. And so there's the rising, and then there's the shining, and that's the infinity loop, right? And that's, to me, is the heart. So there's the light rising, and then there's the heart. It's that beating. And there's 2 parts of it. There's a cleansing that we have to go through, as I mentioned earlier. And then there's the creative expression. And what's our unique gift? I don't think we have time today, but I was going to show you. And if I did, I was going to make a bold move. I'll show you this drum.
Tell me right now. Jump into it.
Well, I grew up, I had really wonderful parents, and they worked really hard. My dad's a cabinet maker, and he went through the recession in Alberta. So he was working day and night, 6 days a week, 16 hours a day, just to survive through that period of time. And he was an artist too, but I never really got to spend a lot of time doing art with him. I worked a lot with him as I aged and matured. So I'm grateful I have a lot of those skills. I can work with wood, and I've done those things with him, but I always wanted to do art with him because that's what I love to do. But now with my daughter, I have an opportunity. So I was inspired when I was traveling on the island to get this drum. So it's a traditional Irish bowline drum. And it's got 3 layers on it now. What I do is I color it Crayola crayon on canvas. This is the second side. I wasn't even going to do anything on this side, but I color it with my daughter when she wakes up in the rising. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this part with gesso, and the caterpillar is that symbol again, right? So it needs to go through that period of unknownness. And the last symbol is actually this. It's the circle. So the circle is the vision. And this is another tool for your audience, a very powerful tool in this age where there's so much distraction. There is a need to develop, I think, in our minds, a deep focus. This is important in studying spiritual materials, whether it's scripture or other forms. And I'm happy to share the reference, and you can share these letters with your audience as well.
Absolutely.
If you're interested. So the circle is the vision part, and it's the idea of a singular focus. If you remember, I began the podcast, I said my singular focus is home. Heaven on Mother Earth. So the circle is that. So these 3 components form part of the moment home miracle. And when we embody them, we have this sense of we're rising in consciousness, we're shining, we're bringing our full self, our soulful self to the present moment to be of service to creation. And we're holding whatever a singular focus is right for us. Maybe for someone it's love, or it could be service, or like it could be anything. For me, I have settled on home, right? Yeah, so I think that answers your question.
It was such a great time to bring that up, because it summarized everything we're getting into. And, you're creating a context for your life, this home context, right? And transporting back home and towards home, and everything getting towards home. And it tells me that you really have your priorities straight, and where you're going all the time, right? Like, when I was
I'm very imperfect when I forget.
None of us are. We aspire for greatness, but we're not perfect. Excellence is what we want to get towards. That's what we do on the Steve Setka Show.
I have a
But
great attitude. That's what counts.
that's always what counts.
Just like you,
Attitude is
brother.
everything.
I think you're an eternal optimist. I know one when I see one.
Exactly, man. And thank you for that. That's such a blessing for you to say that, because that's what we're trying to do: create love, wonder, and beauty on this show. You creating a context home. You have a direction that you're always going. So whenever you are lost or I'm lost and you don't know where to go, you have to pull something out of your pocket and know what your context is for where you're going, right? It's got to be simple, right? So for you, it's like everything I got to do is got to send me home. Heaven on Mother Earth, right? What is that acronym? Heaven on Mother Earth.
Mother Earth.
Home.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's amazing. My context for life is masculine, abundant provider. MAP.
Yeah.
M-A-P.
Yep.
And MAP and home go hand in hand with what our vision is and what we are intending to do. Because
I love
break
that.
it all down, that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Serve God, create beauty, reproduce, make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I like to point to when I talk to secular people, for example, is that we all want the same thing. Okay. The mission that we have in this world is to make it better and to have fun and joy and beauty. So like we get caught up in jargon in religion. I don't like religion. Okay. I think religion's ridiculous. I like faith and I like spirit. And that's how I get to creating the world to be a better place by serving God and reproducing and creating great people.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going with this, is like our contest is so strong. And I want to get back to what you said about changing the narrative a little bit. You talked about the drum. You talked about rising and resting, and rising is instead of waking up. That is so funny you say that, because I have a checklist every day where I mark down if I have completed what that task, plus my rise and my rest time. Not when I wake up, not when I go to bed. Rise, rest, because you're right. Language is so important. And I wrote down this I, and I wrote it from the bottom, and rise, and you're uplifting. But what we've been taught, and I can't believe I did this. This is miraculous. You just said this. When you write an I and I go down, right? And you put the tick on the top and then on the bottom, you're actually pushing energy down further. And like life is just a flow of energy with money, with work, with relationships. It's a transfer. And the purpose of energy is to create abundance.
Absolutely.
In the world. And it's small, almost insignificant things that are actually not insignificant. They're very significant, that make a huge difference. Just like your book that you're writing, just like your mission with Moment Home System or the Moment Home Prodigals, and you're making a huge difference. So I need to acknowledge you about that.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Without changing the topic too much here, I was looking at the website that you sent me and the book, and there's a couple things that stood out to me. Okay. There's a fun piece of artwork on the cover, which you just spoke about as the drum, which was amazing. The other thing that I saw in the background was the sun. Okay? And the sun and the rise and the uplifting nature. And the sun also produces heat.
Yes.
And heat is an important thing in my life, because heat and pressure creates beauty and diamonds. You know, they say diamonds are created through pressure and heat, right? So what I do often in the summer, and what I'm going to do later tonight, is I create heat from God's earth through fire.
Okay.
And what you're doing here is you're creating fire for the world to be better. It's one of the elements, right? The 4 or 5 elements of this world. And it's a great way to do what you're doing and what I'm doing, to seek discomfort.
Yes.
To get better and to grow.
Yes.
And I always had a challenge understanding what the work meant. You know, when people say do the work, right? You would say, hey, Christ letters, etc., do the work, go to therapy, do this, whatever that. That's all worldly stuff. I wasn't doing the work, right? But I found that utilizing fire, literature, and energy, like we're talking about now, watching flames, is the best way for me to sit in my discomfort to learn about the things that you're speaking about, which is why I love it so much. Does fire play a role in your life, by
Absolutely. Well, I'm actually a fire keeper. My spirit name is Ondaakiin. Ondaakiin means keeper of the land. So my background is Indigenous wellness, addictions prevention. So I've gone through a lot of ceremonial training and have been around a lot of fire, and it's a very important element. And actually, I didn't really talk about the purpose of this drum. So I talked about more of the activity of the drum, but the purpose is it's called the 888 Phoenix drum. So it's the 888 Phoenix drum. And the idea here is I'm doing several layers, layer upon layer, and I do a light language writing that actually looks a lot like fire. I wonder if I have here.
I can show you.
And so I created this. I'm a little bit of a inspired inventor too. So I created this as a tool, a visioning tool. So I write my goals and stuff, and I don't know if it's going to be visible.
Yeah, no.
I had it on black.
Okay. Not the writing, but I see the
Yeah, the writing. I don't know if you can see it. Anyways, I'll send you a photo, Steve. You can show your audience after.
I'll put it on the show notes
in some black gesso, and then I'm going to do writing and painting and quotes from Christ letters, and then I'm going to wrap it again and keep doing layers. And I'm going to put it out there, and maybe this is the first time publicly. I've been inspired to do it as a service, to do as a fundraiser. And when I hit 888K as a fundraiser, I'm going to give money to select charities that are helping our world, that are in alignment. And then I'm going to do a marathon, do a whole gallery at once. I'm going to unwrap the drum one at a time and complete the paintings on each drum. So it's a Phoenix drum because going into the fire, I really appreciate you sharing that, and that meditative experience of the fire. To me, art has been my fire because it's what's called to me my whole life, but it's also what I've been most afraid of because it's is my most vulnerable self. As you can see, like I'm showing this piece of art, but it's so all over the place with the colors and stuff. It's like, to me, it's like it's unfinished, and I feel like the fire reminds us that there's this cleansing process we have to go through in life.
It's part of the 2-part system you built.
Yes, exactly. So that cleansing is so, but the light is what comes from the fire, right? And we forget sometimes how present the light is. And I don't know if you could see this, but this is actually lithophane.
Okay.
Here, I wonder if, let me see it from there.
Yeah.
Can you see the images in there?
Kind of, they're imprints. I could, yes.
So this is a lithophane of our daughter's birth. Here, maybe from here you can see.
That's amazing.
Yeah, maybe. So it's 3D printed, and there's a mirror here. And I use this as a meditative tool to remind myself of the miracle that we experienced. We have one throwing her in the water in Nymph Falls on the island, and then having her in the tummy, and then welcoming her, and the moment Julie and I met. And so I feel like part of the fire process, to bring it back to that, is that when we remember things, we remember our journey, lots of emotions can come up. I feel like when we don't hold on to them, and again, back to this idea of pride, to bring it full circle, when we don't feel like we're alone on the journey and we give it all to God and rejoice that we've had this whole amazing journey and God's been with us this whole time, loving us. And when we remember that, then we can open to a new appreciation of the whole journey and also celebrate ourselves beyond pride. It's a celebration of life that we've undertaken this journey as a soul, and we've grown, and we've blessed people, and yeah, we've made mistakes, but we've made amends, and we've grown, and we've learned. And that's the fires I think we all go through in our unique journey on earth.
Unbelievable. Like I told you from the start, we're not preparing with questions. Okay. We're not having a conversation before specifically about what we're going to talk about. It's all raw, right? But God put on my heart something that's meaningful to me that he knew was meaningful to you too. That is divine. That is incredible. And the way you're doing it is something that I'm going into in life soon too. And I just wrote down, I can't wait for birth.
Yeah,
this baby. And I'm so
greatest
excited.
Miracle.
And I was dabbling with like names of this show when I started about 6-8 months ago. And I was like, like future father, future husband type of thing. Cause I was thinking prior to marriage and having kids and babies and all this. And I ended up just settling on my name, which is great because we're building the brand. But like, this is what I want to do. Like, I'm so excited about fatherhood. And you're getting more jacked up. And Casey's going to listen to this. She doesn't listen to every episode, but I got to get her to listen to this one because she's like, I don't know if you're doing enough work about the natural process of birth and what we're getting into. And are you talking to the baby enough? Which I am. I love that. Yeah. I speak optimism into that baby all the time.
Amazing. They can hear you.
Ellie.
Yeah.
The baby can hear us, and it's going to be a surprise, and we're not going to find out the sex, and we're doing natural birth center.
Such a beautiful surprise.
It's going to be so great, and I'm very excited for when it happens in the early winter and whatnot. And it's going to be a fire moment. Okay. And it brings it back to like the next generation who talks about things like, oh, that is so fire. But that's an important thing to me. And you talked about something else there. You triggered me on something else about emotion and the fact that it is a marathon. Okay. Now I want to
Yes.
bring this a
Yes.
little bit to the last component of
Yes. I want to ask you
the
about it,
show.
man.
Yes,
I
yes.
was
So
just thinking about it too.
the process is a marathon, and I can relate to the closest thing that I've ever done physically to potentially what a birth would be like for a woman. For me, would have been running a marathon yesterday. Okay.
Yes.
In
Yes.
Fargo, North Dakota, traveled down there, had a great
Amazing.
time. And I'm just going to tell you, and I'm so excited. And we talk about freight, faith, and sport, and how they all relate together because you're transporting through the course. Your faith is with you. I can't even describe to you how significantly God was with me on this race yesterday. Okay.
Mhm.
I was
Yep.
so choked up when I saw Casey at the finish line in conjunction with praying the entire time when he was breaking me down on the course at mile 14, 15, 16, all the way to 21. My body was completely fucked. Okay. And like my mind was giving out and my body was still going somehow. But my spirit and my soul was so strong.
Yeah.
And I slowed down like crazy. And I did slow down in the latter half of the race from the start. It's a rookie mistake. I'm not a trained runner. I trained for the marathon.
Hey, man,
Amen.
you did it.
I
You
did
did
it.
it.
But I broke down, which is rare at the finish line. I thought I was going to run over the finish line and I was going to be like, medical, help me. I was like, my body was aching,
I can
my friend.
imagine, man.
And like, it was brutal. Like, I can imagine what childbirth might be like in the world. But if you're supernatural, maybe it's not as bad. Anyways, I cried over the celebration with
Good,
my
man.
wife in her arms, hands up in the air. And like the overwhelming emotion was just intense and crazy because he broke me down so much to realize the potential that I have
Mhm.
physically,
Yeah.
spiritually, emotionally, soulfully to complete. So like, it was so fun. It was so beautiful. It was so lovely. Does that paint a picture of what
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, it's so awesome. And like that journey that you went on, it is an act of faith to start something like that, not having ever done it before. And I love that you brought that presence with that relationship with God. Again, it's back to that mutual relationship. It's like you're inviting in the most important relationship. I think there was a period in time where we considered our relationship with God as our soulmate because it's also the presence in your wife. It's the presence in your growing child.
Yeah.
It's the presence in your parents.
It's
So
everywhere.
yeah. And we need to call upon that support going through our most difficult times in life. So the fact that you are willing to be broken down is an act of faith. And only when we can go into that and trust. Otherwise, what's the alternative? Stay in the safety, stay in the security, and never push past your boundaries. And then you can't grow, right? We're meant to continue to grow. I think we're actually supposed to that's why I love the symbolism of the butterfly, because one thing I learned on the island, it was one of those moments you said, like, no coincidences. It was totally a synchronistic, serendipitous moment. I was going just to collect water for a family because we won't drink tap water, so I find wells wherever I can.
Neither do we.
and I was at this friend's filling up. Her name was River, filling up water, and then her friend from England tells me this, and I feel like this is a beautiful cap of this because it's a reflection of your journey on this. And as you're preparing for fatherhood, I feel like you're going to have so much more presence and empathy for your wife as her body is opening and allowing this. And she's going to do something she's never done. It requires a huge amount of faith and courage to do that. And it's when a caterpillar finds its place and starts weaving its chrysalis from its nature, it goes through a total transformation. Like, none of the cells are the same. It just totally transfers. And there's something in the caterpillar's body this is what this woman told me, called imaginal cells. And the imaginal cells know exactly what the image, the picture of the butterfly will be, like what the blueprints of the butterfly will be. But here's the thing: when the caterpillar is going through the process, the caterpillar cells resist the imaginal cells. It doesn't want to change. It's like, no, like, I'm a caterpillar, right? And what she told me is, this is the miracle here, is that the exact energy that the imaginal cells need to break down and transform the caterpillar's body into the butterfly's body is given from the resistance that the caterpillar cells provide. So
use stress. It's good
right.
stress.
Right. It's the same thing going on a marathon. You're saying, I'm going to subject myself. It's like those crazy mothers who go for the ultra marathons, right? Like
Yeah.
Goggins talks about this, like he's just mastered pain, like it doesn't matter to him anymore. It's
Right.
sensation. But like I think that those boundaries, when we push them and go into the unknown, like you did, like trying something new, going into the unknown, that's what keeps life expansive and interesting. So I'm grateful you do it. You know what? I'm gonna challenge myself. I'm gonna do a marathon as well. I don't know if it's going to be this season, but I do love going for running. And what I've learned, there's two things I'll leave for you and your
Yes,
audience
please.
with running. Two, have you ever heard of Chi running?
Yeah, I know Chi. I know what Chi is.
So
Chi and
Chi Running is an amazing book, and it teaches you how to run from your danshan, where you lean forward instead of use the power of your legs, and you actually, it's like he describes it like you're a needle with cotton limbs. So you're running, and you just keep your presence in your, and it's a much more energy effective way of running.
efficient.
And there's another efficiency, and it does work. I can attest to it, and it's like your body becomes more relaxed. So for long distance stuff, it's perfect. And the other strategy is from a book called The Energy Codes by Dr. Sue Morter.
Okay.
And it talks about breathing through the body, and you can apply it when you're running. Anyways, I've given you like a lot, all these things I actually am sharing in our newsletter. So if you and your audience want to go to lightheartvision.com, we have a newsletter where I share all of the things that I've gathered along the journey from different teachers that are complementary to helping the rising process as we come into our caterpillar self. I feel like did I take your thunder there, man? Like you were talking.
No, that was absolutely perfect. And that was exactly related to what the experience was. And I've never heard that before. A couple of those concepts. I know what chi is energy flow, right?
Exactly.
This energy you're talking about in running, and it's incredible. And it is a miracle what the body can do. And a man's body, yes, does not give birth, is not pregnant, all this. And a woman's body does that for sure. But the human body is capable of so much.
Oh yeah,
and
it's amazing.
Throughout our life. And you hear it in school and science. I wasn't educated in the church other than high school. I just go to Roman Catholic high school. But prior to that, I was like, you think and you hear is like, man, the body is capable of incredible things. And running is one of them. Birth is another one of them. Physical mastery, like what the mind is capable is incredible. And you know what? It's funny because I don't remember hearing a lot about God's power within that. It was just like, oh, the body is amazing. Science.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
God, this is our creator that's doing
Yes.
this for us, right? And humans are incredible and wonderfully capable. And you talked about the caterpillar theory and the new life created from death to create something different through that stress, that pushback, that negativity, the energy, right? That it's like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. And I'm scared and I'm horrified and it's so painful and it hurts. And that's what actually creates that breakthrough for the caterpillar and that breakthrough for us. Because like the amount of like praise that I've gotten for this marathon, again, humbling myself. It's not me. I didn't do it. I was a vehicle for God to like show.
You were willing to, though. And I think that's where we need to celebrate and uplift one another.
And I'm very excited. I'm very happy. And it was awesome. But that in itself allows me to realize that like, oh my gosh, this like stress and pressure, this support, this love from everybody else. And then the stress and the pressure I put on myself actually breaks me through to be able to do it and complete and finish. And I kid you not, like the pain, the agony, the doubt, I want to walk, I don't know if I can keep moving is real, right? But like, I think about it in hindsight and I'm like, why did I keep going? And how did I keep going, right? Because I literally said like 100 times, my body's done. Like it's given out. I'm not a trained runner. I'm not a marathon runner, right? I was 4 hours and 5 minutes, which is pretty good. It's about midway through the pack.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
And I was like 500, overall. And, a bit below halfway for my age group, 30 to 39 male. But I was like latter half in like overall and men.
That's awesome, man.
And such an accomplishment. So like, you're so right. And the fear of change creates so much success in our life. And can you imagine if we didn't have that, right? If we didn't have the fear of change to propel us forward, I don't think we would accomplish as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I listen to this guy, Andy Frisell, all the time. He says, bro, the world was created by people who were tired, sick, didn't want to do it, were emotionally drained, right? And the amount of accomplishment that has achieved. Yet the world tells us the opposite. Oh, relax, don't work too hard, take care of yourself. Right. It's soft. And there's a combination of both.
Yeah.
It's so incredible what we can do as humans. Final words to you, my friend.
Well, it's funny that you say that. One of my favorite stories that Christ talks about in the letters is exactly about this, and it's actually gives a lot more context to walking on water. Would you like to hear about it?
Quickly, yes.
So, a lot of the time he would be drained from healing and helping people in the crowds and sharing his teachings, right? So he'd go into caves to meditate, to reconnect with father mother life. And on one occasion he connected so profoundly to divine consciousness that he found himself in body floating out of the cave. So he had transcended in the body the laws of nature as we would think of them. And only upon seeing his disciples in the predicament they were in on the water did his consciousness lower to the point where he was now walking on water. But before that, he floated out of the caves. I think what we're actually capable as a species, as human beings, is so far beyond what we imagine. So heaven on Mother Earth, when we're talking about world enlightenment, world enlightenment, you and I, and we're actually expressing mastery as spiritual masters, totally attuned to God within us and living in that way. What we're capable, it solves all of the world's problems. He was able to manifest bread out of thin air, and he talks about that here. Like, bread is a very complex thing. So all that to say is, like, we are like so much more capable, but when we're inviting God in to show us, that's when we can really celebrate that richness of life.
Blown away. Like, I don't even have words. Like, I said this yesterday. The greatest thing about what I did yesterday in conjunction with what you're saying is our potential is just ridiculous, right? It's so far beyond what we can fathom as humans, right? We're imperfect. Yeah. We're humans. We don't know what we're doing. So we need help. And we enlist the help through the Father, Heavenly Father, forever and ever. Amen. And blessed. And, I associate with people that are winners and that are drivers and they're killers and they want to move forward in life on purpose so that we can keep moving forward and breaking barriers and doing great things, because it's the ultimate sign of love from God into our lives. And we're just doing it back towards him to serve him and glorify him. And there's a movement going on, I kid you not, right now, Nathaniel, about athletes, about professionals, about salespeople, about people writing books, everyone. And there's a revival around faith. And you know what? It's not just Christianity. It's the principles that we learn through Jesus Christ, through God, through our faith, that is creating this world to be so much better. I mean, we get so much stuff, AI and automation and the beauty and the wonder, that it's going to come out scary. But like you said, the fear of change is scary, but it's good. And that's what's going to create the beauty in the scenes. It's crazy. We got to wrap up this conversation.
Absolutely.
We could go on all night talking about this. This is a Sunday. This is day of rest, but we are doing the Lord's work today, which is awesome. You need to tell us where we can find you with this newsletter online, how we get your book, and where the audience can get onto you.
Yeah, I'll send you the links. It's lightheartvision.com. We're currently building a really beautiful web VR space where people will be able to upload higher visions. We're building a community. I have a few teams of students that are building this from the coding ground up. So right now it's just a landing page. There's 2 landing pages right now. So just lightheartvision.com if you want to sign up for our newsletter, and then there's Lightheart Vision if you want to pre-order our book, Light on Fear. It's light dash book. I'll send you the links, and I really appreciate it, Steve. What you said, it just reminds me of truth. There's this awakening happen. People want the truth. Of course, women have a role to birth children. Men have a role to protect and provide. And we all have a role to follow and fulfill our soul purpose, which is unique. And when we do it together, oh, what a world that will be.
It's amazing. And we are in the right place at the right time. And we're having these conversations and we're spreading the message, and it was fun. It's engaging. It's filled with joy. It's filled with love. This might be the next level that we're getting to on the show, because we needed something like this for sure. And the relation to your life and our life and how they're connected, even though we do different things. We're getting our career. What do you do for career? We do different things, but they're connected and they're intertwined. And we created this friendship and this relationship around it. And God knew this was going to happen forever.
Absolutely.
And ever. Yeah. Amen. Thank you very much for joining the show.
Amen, brother.
This was amazing. So much fun. Go out, kill it in your life. Do everything you can to serve the Lord. Hard things, incredible things, beautiful things. And we'll see you on the next episode in a week. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you found value in what we shared and that you'll take it with you to positively impact the world around you. If so, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and share the show, because we're on a mission to grow and reach more hearts. Prayers, gratitude, and love. Until next time.